So continuing where we left off last day, part 2, and then we're also going to go part ways into the next lesson. It says, Laura has invested $15,000. I think that's the principal. If you wanted to, I don't know how you choose to solve questions, but if you wanted to, you could even make a little note right here, put a little P. I don't know how you, I try and be organized when I'm solving stuff. If it's less than 1 second of work and it gets rid of a lot of dumb mistakes, to me, that's the good investment. I don't like to show lots and lots of work because that, to me, is a bad investment. I want to try and find a balance. She wants it to grow to at least $50,000. Hey, what do you think that $50,000 is? Final amount, I think. By the time her newborn enters university in 18 years. I think 18 is the total time. That might not be N. It depends on how we're compounding, whether it's annually or semi-annually or monthly, but I'll just make a note that I saw that. Okay? By the way, an RESP is a Registered Education Savings Plan. The way those work is if and when you have kids someday, all of your income gets taxed. However, before it gets taxed, you can take some of that income and you can lock it into an RESP. The government won't tax that portion, so it lowers your overall income, which means they'll tax you less. They'll only tax that if you don't use it for college, for your kids, or university. So something to think about. Many of you will be having children in the next 10 years or so. Things to consider and find out about. So she wants $50,000 in 18 years. Why did she pick 18 years? Okay, this after grade 12. Makes sense. What's part A asking me to find? The interest rate. We haven't done that yet. So I'm going to be really careful. I am going to make a little list. So I'm going to say A equals 50,000. P equals 15,500. How is this being compounded? Annually, semi-annually, monthly, weekly, daily? So that means that N is going to be just plain old 18. If it was semi-annually, N would be 36. And they want me to find that. Okay? Well, I think we're going to use right? And this one, because that little I is in brackets, and there's an exponent on that bracket, we're going to have to be much more careful. I'm going to plug in numbers. We're going to get 50,000 equals that. Once you've written that down, put your pencil down for a second. The most common mistake, kids want to do this, and that's wrong. Why is that wrong? Who remembers the word bedmass? Okay? What did the B stand for? Now the B didn't stand for get rid of brackets. The B stood for do what's inside the brackets. Now I look inside the brackets, I have 1 plus I. I really can't do much with that. What did the E stand for? You had to deal with exponents first before you're allowed to multiply into the brackets. So I cannot do 15,000 times that. However, Brooke, my angel, mathematically, what's happening between the 15,000 and the bracket? Adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? So what's the opposite of multiplying? How can I move that? Dividing, she says, ringing with authority in her voice. So if I hear you correctly, Brooke, I could go like this. Divide by 15,500. I got to do the same thing to the other side, right? Divide by 15,500. What is 50,000 divided by 15,500? Does it work out to a nice decimal or does it work out to a yucky decimal? Oh, menu 1, 50,000 divided by 15,500. I'm going to write down 3.2258, but I'm going to keep this whole thing on my calculator. 3.2258. And here's where we have to get clever, and this is why I wanted you to get your calculators out, because I have to show you where this obscure function is. Again, look up for a second. You can write this down if you want to, or you can just watch. If I gave you this, how would I get rid of a squared if I wanted to find out what x was? Tiffany, did you hear that? Square root. X would be the square root of 12. What if I had this? X cubed equals 51. How would I get rid of a cubed? You're right, whoever whispered it. I heard someone say it. What? Cube root. Rachel, you were right. Have some confidence, kiddo. Okay? Remember, cube root means something times something times something times itself times the three of them. Okay? What if I had this? And I wanted to get the x by itself. If I had x to the fifth, what root do you think I'd need now? Fifth root? And whatever your calculators, and I'll show you how to do this on your calculator in a second. Okay? What if I had this? I need to deal with that 10 first. I would say this. 1 plus x is going to be the 10th root of 1200. You spotting the pattern? Spotting how we deal with a number that's an exponent? We take that root. So, pick your pencils up. What do I have here? I need to take the 18th root. And you may have wondered, hey, why do we need anything beyond square root and cube root? Because of this. This actually, big roots actually do show up in finance all the time. The longer your loan, the bigger that exponent. So if you're working way backwards, if you need to get rid of that exponent, it's going to be a root. So I'm going to write this. The 18th root of 3.2258 equals 1 plus little I. And when you're doing roots, you put the index inside the little V-shaped thing right there. That's the type of root. By the way, do you know where that symbol came from? So until about 300 or 400 years ago, they would write this. And then as they were writing faster, they would write this. And then somebody said, why don't I just abbreviate the word root with an R? And then somebody said, you know what? Why don't we just make that a symbol and we can put a little index right there. It's where the square root symbol, it came from a lazy lowercase r abbreviation for, you guys never know that? Oh, there you go. By the way, I'm the king of useless nerd trivia. Get used to it. You'll learn something this year. It may not always be useful, but you'll learn something. Okay? How could I get the I by itself? Subtract what? It's the one's plussing, so I'm going to subtract 1. Okay? So I'm going to go like this. Minus 1. I'm just going to go like this, minus 1, and I'm going to write it out. I'm going to have I by itself, and apparently that's going to be the 18th root of 3.2258 take away 1. It's going to be that thing. Kyle, are you okay with that so far? Yeah? Now, don't freak. We're going to do all this on our calculator, but what you are going to have to remember is where this stuff is. So first, we have to find out where our root button is. Let's look at our calculators, please. Okay. Right here, if you can see the little dot on the screen, that's square root. Right next to it is the xth root. Which root do we want? The 18th. So we're going to go like this. The 18th, and then shift that button. That tells your calculator, I want to do the 18th root. And the reason it has that X up there, Christina, it's trying to say, I know you want that 18 to be inside the little V-shaped thing right there. Of what?
What was that?
Second function exponent. The opposite of it. By the way, it's the inverse of doing an exponent. You can either raise something to a power. Going backwards is shift that button. Found it? Okay, everybody found it? If you didn't, now's the time to ask. I don't mind waiting. You got it, Kyla? Yeah. Now, I could type out 3.2258, but if you typed that previous line, the most recent answer stored in your calculator is 3.22580645 and whatever else is off the screen. And I'd like to use as accurate as possible, so I'm going to use my previous answer. Your answer button is shift negative right down there. You'll see ANS. That will put that number right there, and it's also less typing. So that gives me this first part, root 18 of the 18th root of 3.2258. Then what? Take away, not negative. Take away, make sure you hit subtraction, not negative. 1. There's the interest rate as a decimal. Looks like 6.72% if you want me to percentize it. Everybody get that okay on their calculator? Anybody not get that? I can help you because we've upped the level of difficulty. Okay, so I equals 0.0672 or 6.72%. That's how you find, so to find an interest rate, which goes back to your question earlier when I said in that table, sometimes they're asking us to find I, you're going to have to take the root of whatever the exponent is. And if you're compounded like monthly, and so that exponent was multiplied by 12, it could be like the 60th root or the 80th root if it's in there for a long time. It could be a pretty big root, but your calculator will handle it just fine. These almost always won't work out evenly. If they do, great, but usually they're going to be decimals. In fact, to be honest, if I really wanted to guarantee that I had $50,000, I probably would need to round up no matter what, because that, since I technically, if you look at it, Rachel, I rounded down because there's more digits, I might finish with like $49,982 or something like that. So when in doubt, you round up, which is different from your normal rounding rules. Well, you may have noticed in money, they almost always round up because they want you to pay more. They don't follow the whole, if it's above, oh, they do with pennies now, thankfully. But otherwise, they never used to follow if it was above 5 or below 5 round. If you owed them 0.1 pennies, you were paying them an entire penny every time. Is that okay? Kyla's going to finish her yawn. You good? This is a part B, I think, yes? What's part B say? Says, suppose that Laura wants her $15,000 to grow to at least $60,000 at the interest rate from part A. How long will this take? Which of these variables in this black equation right here is how long? Oh, okay, now they're going to ask us to find n. Okay. B. This time, we want the final amount to be $60,000. The principal is still $15,500. The interest rate is going to be, the little I is going to be 6.73. They want us to find n. I'm big on, if I'm not sure what to do, my fallback position, Cole, and you'll pick this up in physics if you haven't already, I write down the equation because it takes 1 second and my question's no longer blank and I feel better. So the first thing I'm going to do is write down A equals P bracket 1 plus little I to the n. It's compound interest, it does say so. So Nick, there's my fallback. I know that's safe. Let's plug in everything I know. By the way, what are they asking me to find? N. Connor, where is the letter N sitting? In particular, upstairs as an exponent. Okay? You cannot solve this directly without something called a logarithm, which a few of you have seen, but most of you haven't. So what I'm going to teach you how to do for now is how to guess and check. And then in about 15 minutes, I'm going to show you how your graphing calculator can do this in its financial math section. Okay? So for now, I would go like this. Plug everything in. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to go down here if that's okay. I would now go like this. 60,000 equals 15,500 bracket 1.0673 to the n. Yes, I added 1 and 0.0673 together in my head, Foster. I hope we can.
You put 15,550.
Is it not that? I thought it was 15,005. Oh! Too many fives. I'm sorry. Sean, candy for you later. Remind me. Don't let me forget. Sorry? Was that Sean? Sorry, I did it again? Or what was,
No, he's Sean.
was that you that said that? I'm sorry. I thought it was Sean. It's hard because he's sitting like this, and so sometimes if he talks, I can't really tell because, he could just be really, really, ventriloquist kind of person, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So what you could do is you could insult me and then just stare at Jordan like, oh, how could you? Right? Huh? Eh? Just saying. Now what? Okay, because there's an exponent, I cannot, Sebastian, don't write this down. Can't do that because I haven't taken care of that n yet. But Brooke, my angel, joy of my heart, light of my life. What's happening right here between the 1,500 and the bracket? You don't say. Would you have any suggestions or advice on how we could then, what we could do with that 15,500 without the 50? Why? Because what's the opposite of multiplying? Pray tell. Oh, you are the queen, my angel, the queen, I say. So we end up with this. 60,000 divided by 15,500, no 50. I'm going to write 3.871, but I'll keep that on my calculator. Is that right? I think. I hope. Connor, where did you say this n was? Still is, but I just got rid of the bracket. It's an exponent. Right now, you have no mathematical skill lets you actually get that exponent down to ground level so you can do math with it, unless you did pre-calc last year. Apparently, Mr. Gerard did it last year in pre-calc. So without knowing how to work logarithms, all we can do is this. Get your calculators out. How many years until we hit how many years until we hit 50,000? Do you remember? 18 years. So we know the answer is going to be more than 18. So I'm going to go like this. 1.0673 to the power of 20. Does that work out to 3.871? No? Too high or too low? 1.0673 to the power of 25. I don't know. Oh! 25 is what? Too high. Mr. Dueck, yeah, is there a quicker way to do this? Yeah, if we just go back arrow, let's get rid of that 5 and let's try a 2. Oh! Too big still? Try a 1. Still a bit too big? Try a 0. Ooh! 20 years, not enough? Right? See it? 21 years, little too much. So in terms of this particular loan, she'd have to leave it in for 21 years, because if she withdrew it after 20 years, would we have enough? Now you'll notice, Rosanna, that 3.871 blah, 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 doesn't show up anywhere in the original question. We had to derive it by getting everything but the bracket by itself. And as I said before, these often won't work out evenly. But we can say by guessing "21 years. Okay. Are you out of room to write, or do you have some room over on the right-hand side? Like, do you have more room on this paper to write? If not, get out another piece of paper. Sorry, but if you can fit it on here, I want to do a Part C, and the Part C will take up about the same amount of room as Part A took up, if you're trying to budget. Okay? Part C. What interest rate would, what was her name? Laura need if it was the same as Part A, but compounded monthly? So start with Part A. She's starting with 15,500. She wants to end with 50,000. But she has another bank that says they'll offer her compounded monthly, which I think, Justin, will be better, because the more often they calculate the interest, the more often they pay the interest, the bigger it'll get. I think it'll get bigger faster. I think. Is that okay, Rachel? Or a question, or just, do you have a question? You're good? Yeah. You know what? Was that a ring? Was that someone's phone going off in my class? Did I hear a ring? I heard a ding of some type. If it happens again, Tim Hortons. Okay. Sounded like it came from over here somewhere. I'm just saying. So in part A, what did we want for the final amount? In part A, what did we want for the final amount? I heard someone. Yeah? 50,000? What was the starting amount? 15,500? They're asking me to find this. How many years was it in part A? 18. How is this being compounded now, though? Which is what? 18 times 12. 216? Oh, by the way, we got to do one more thing here. How is this being compounded? So what would you have done with the annual interest rate to get this number here? Divide it by 12. We're going to have to multiply this by 12 when we're done to get the annual rate, the one that the bank would have quoted. Or if this was semi-annually, what would we have had to do with this number? Multiply it by? If it was quarterly, we would have to multiply it by? If it was daily, we would have to multiply it by 365. So you're going to have to make an adjustment. This is tough. Let's make sure we don't forget that. So it's going to be just like part A, except at the very, very end, once we've taken whatever route we need to take to get the interest by itself, that's going to be the interest rate divided by 12, times it by 12, and we're done. And we're going to try and keep as many of these numbers on our calculator as we can so we're accurate. Make sense? Here we go. How would I start this? Before I do anything else, what would I do to make myself relax? I'm going to write down the equation. Trust me, I've been doing this for 15 years. Sebastian, that 1 second seems to get rid of so many dumb mistakes, and it reduces stress, and kids are relaxed. I don't know why, but it works. It's an old trick. Sebastian, what can I put in where?
You can put 50,000.
I agree with you. Let me write that down.
And 15,500. Bracket 1 plus 5 bracket.
To the 216. By the way, if you may notice I make my little eyes curly to make sure you can tell that's not a 1. Little trick of the trade, right? You'll notice I make my 7s like that so you can tell it's not a 1. If I ever use Z as a variable, that's a Z, that's a 2. And I know my writing's messy. Sebastian, can I do that?
No.
And can't? No. So you know what, Mr. Dueck? Don't even try and fool us. Good call. We'll leave the back corner alone this time. Who can tell me what's happening mathematically between the 1,500 and the bracket? Timesing. So how will I move that 15,500 over? I shall divide. $50,000 divided by 15,500. No 50. I get that again. 3.2258. Blah 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 blah. So I'm going to write. Change colors, Mr. Dueck. I'm going to write 3.2, was it 2258? How can I get that little I by itself? How can I get rid of that bracket? How will I get rid of that exponent? And again, if you're not sure, think about an easier example that you do know the answer for. Don't write this down. If this just said that, what would you do? Square root. If it just said that, what would you do? Fourth root. So what if it says this? You're going to do the 216th root. Yeah. Sorry, stuff gets big. So it's going to be the 216th root of 3.2258 equals 1 plus little I. Tiffany says, hey, Dueck, why don't you just minus the 1? In fact, Tiffany, look up. How about I go boom, boom. Wasn't that clever? Don't you wish you could do that? You okay with that, Colin? We're good? All right. So we go to our calculators. Hopefully you already went 50,000 divided by 15,500 so that you have that decimal stored. Now I'm going to go 216th root of that decimal. Take away 1. Ah! Don't. I have an answer. Mine is showing me scientific notation. Is yours giving you an answer in scientific notation? No? If yours is, I think I might have showed you this the other day, but if yours is, if you go second function setup, which is right above menu, and you go down arrow a few times until you see display, and then you go F3 for normal to get it to say normal 2. Whoop. Didn't want to do that, Mr. Dueck. Got to retype it really quickly. 50,000 divided by 15,500. 216th root of that. Take away 1. And there you get an answer as a decimal instead of scientific notation. So I get this. I equals 0.00. I'm just going to write 54, but I'm going to keep this, Jake, on my calculator. That is not the interest rate. Why is that not the interest rate? What did we do to get that I since it was compounded monthly? What would we have done? Divided it by 12. So how would I go backwards? So how would I go backwards to find what it was originally? Let's go R for rate equals little I times 12. It's going to be this number times 12. She needs an interest rate of 6.53%. I've scrolled down. What was our original answer to part A? What did we say if it was compounded annually? What did she need as an interest rate? 6.7. So 6.5. She can already drop down 2 decimal percentage points. That's not bad. Makes a difference. Makes a difference. I was going to try and get to the graphing calculators today, but right now there's about 25 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is we're still going to do it by hand in today's homework. Tomorrow I'm going to show you how you can use your graphing calculators to check your answers. And I did my calculator rant on how, in this case, you should know both. Preferably without dropping your calculators on the ground because they deserve better. Am I about to tell you what the homework is? So probably no. Okay? So page 40. I already assigned number 3, but now I think Brooke, in number 3, now you can also do the ones where you're finding little I. We did a couple of examples here. Okay? I already assigned 4, yes? And what else did I assign last day? 6? So number 5 is asking you to find an interest rate. Now I think it's fair game for me to say you can try that. 6 I already assigned. Now if you did 3, 4, and 6 already, just continue on the same page and do 5 underneath 6. I'm not freaking. Oh, they're not in order. Couldn't care less. Right? Let me see. What else did I suggest here? Yeah, I think we need a bit more practice than that, and I'm going to give you lots of time to work on this. I don't like 7. I don't like 8. Nine, no. 10, sure. $11A. I'm going to assign 12. If I put a star next to it, it means that one's nasty, and I haven't done a specific example like that, but I'm curious, Silky, to see who can figure it out and have that aha moment. But if you don't get it, all that means is you're normal, and I'll happily start next class by going over it. Okay? I got your name right, didn't I? Or did I butcher your name? Silka. I've been saying it wrong all year, Silka. And did you correct me on the first day? So you didn't tell me? Really? Maybe I should just shorten it to for the rest of the year. I could Silka. Is it Silka or Silke? Silka? Okay, so it's not like a umlaut German thing or anything like that? Okay. Silka. Um, 13, meh. Can you all look at number 15, please? Can you all look at number 15? Silka, can you read to me number 15, please, my angel, joy of my heart? Okay, so they want you to find I think. Keep going. Compounded quarterly, so make sure when you find little I, you have to times that by 4 to get the annual interest rate. Yes? Keep going. So this is asking to triple. Did they tell you how much you're starting with? No. Did they tell you how much you're ending with? What did they tell you? What do they want the money to do? A word that begins with letter T. Let your starting amount be $1. If it triples, what's your final amount? $3. And it'll work if you let your starting amount be 100 and your final be 300, or your starting amount be 1,000 and your final be 3,000. But if they ever just give you tripling or doubling or multiplying by 5, you know what? Let your initial be 1 and then your final be 3 or 4 or whatever they want it to end up as. Easiest way to go on those. And you'll still get the right answer. Is that okay? Now I'm shutting up. Hang on. Let me go like this.